Okay, so this is the quick review of the respiratory system. Remember, the respiratory system is how we take in oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. So basically, all of the structures that you need to know are on this handy dandy diagram that I have here on a picture of. So remember, when air comes in the nasal cavity, it warms and moistens the air. Okay, so warms and moistens. So remember the question on the review that says what happens to air as it enters the body. It gets warmed and moistened in the nasal cavity. Also, there are cilia, or little hairs in your nose that catch debris and pollen and things like that, which is good. Then we have the air comes in and goes into the pharynx, which is a fancy word for throat. And then it passes through the larynx. Remember, your larynx is your voice box, and there are two horizontal folds of skin that vibrate back and forth, and that's how you make sound in your vocal cords. So this is your pharynx, which is your throat, your larynx, which is your voice box. And then you have here, right at the top of your trachea, is the epiglottis, and I guess that's the one thing that's not on here. So epiglottis, and your epiglottis is a flap of tissue that opens and closes when you breathe. So it's open when you're breathing, it closes when you're eating, so that the air, your food won't go down into your trachea. So right about here is where the esophagus splits from, well, I guess it's like there, splits from the trachea. So every time you eat, the food will go down your esophagus and not down into your trachea. So that's what this epiglottis is for. It covers it and it opens and closes. So air goes into your trachea, that is your windpipe, and then your trachea splits into two separate bronchi. Bronchi is the plural. Bronchus is the singular. So it splits into bronchi, then bronchioles, and then alveoli, and these are these little things at the end of the bronchioles here. Now in the next slide, I'm going to download a bigger picture of alveoli wrapped with capillaries, so we can talk about the gas exchange. But before I do that, I want you to notice the diaphragm. Okay, so as the diaphragm relaxes and pushes up and pushes the air out of the lungs, and as it contracts, it comes down and lets that air fill back up again. So this is your diaphragm. It's a muscle, and it contracts and releases. And as it contracts, it pushes air out, and then as it releases or extends, it allows air to enter. Okay, what I downloaded here is a great picture of the capillaries that are surrounding the alveoli. So here's your alveoli, and these are what they called grape-like clusters, okay, and you can see them here. And what you see here are the capillaries. Remember, the pulmonary vein is bringing that, pulmonary artery is bringing that blue, tired blood into the lungs, and it is dropping off the carbon dioxide and then picking up oxygen, which is why you see halfway across the alveoli, it is going from blue to red. So again, pulmonary artery brings the old tired blood into the lungs, and this capillary surrounds the alveoli, and then that is where that gas exchange occurs. Now I've got another great picture, I think, that shows how the oxygen and the carbon dioxide transfer. So I'm going to add that in a minute. Okay, so you can see from this video, this picture, that you have the blood cells coming in that do not have oxygen anymore. Now remember, this is how your air is coming in. Okay, so this is your alveoli, okay? This structure here. So air comes in, and the air that comes in is oxygen, okay? And but the gas that comes in with the blood is carbon dioxide. So what happens is the carbon dioxide jumps over to the alveoli, and the oxygen jumps over into the blood. So they just trade places. Remember, they're going from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. That is diffusion. And because the membrane of the capillary and the membrane of the alveoli and the membrane of the capillary are so thin, it allows that exchange of gases to occur. So remember, this is the alveoli. You breathe in oxygen. The oxygen hops over into the capillary, and then the capillaries bring the carbon dioxide to the alveoli, jumps over, and then you breathe carbon dioxide out. So I think that covers it for the respiratory system. I know there were lots of questions today about what is the difference between breathing and respiration. And I know sometimes that can be confusing because we call it the respiratory system, respiration. We call it the respiratory system, which is breathing. So that's confusing. But I know in this question, we're talking about inhaling oxygen, exhale CO2. That's breathing. Respiration is using the oxygen for energy. Because remember, this is referring to actually cellular respiration. Okay? So that is the difference between breathing, which is getting the oxygen, and respiration, which is using the oxygen. That all credit goes to Anthony on that one. Great description, best one I've ever heard. So that covers the respiratory system. I'm trying to think. Let's see. So questions that came out like during the game and during the review were, what part of the respiratory system does gas exchange occur? Gas exchange occurs in the alveoli, in the respiratory system, but in the circulatory system it happens at the capillaries. So remember that. That should just about cover it. Again, there are lots of other there's lots of other information on Blackboard, so make sure you use those resources too.